1930, a famous psychologist by the name of John B. Watson wrote a new edition of his book, Behaviorism. And he said there was fear out there, that there was social experimentation going on. And he said, shouldn't worry about it. He said, first of all, we must, this is a quote from the book, we must all admit that social experimentation is going on at a very rapid rate at present, and an alarmingly rapid rate for comfortable, conventional souls. And he says, as an example of social experimentation, we have war. War is always the front for social engineering. Nothing has changed in this regard. The massive social engineering that took place in Catholic neighborhoods and parishes during the 1950s had all been prepared for by World War II. World War II was the justification for massive changes in the way we lived in America. More recently, 9/11 and the war in the Middle East was also the stage, the excuse, the pretext for massive changes in the way Americans lived. And Louis Wirth got the same idea from Stalin, and he wrote in one of these reports to the federal government, there are certain people who are suspect because of their origin. Now, you explain to me how this fits into all of the official narratives of the United States of America. Where does it say in the Constitution, or where does it say in the Declaration of Independence that certain people are suspect because of their origin? No, it's supposed to be a pluribus unum. Remember all that type of stuff, blah, blah, blah. This is totally anti-American, what we're talking about here. And then it gets worse. Then he starts actually listing who these people are who are suspect by their, because of their origin. Germans. Okay, we're at war with Germany. Italians. Okay, we're at war with Italy. The Irish. Well, wait a minute. The Irish, we're not at war with the Irish. And then the Polish. Well, wait a minute. I thought we were fighting on the side of the Poland against. So then you think, well, wait a minute. What do these four groups have in common? They're Catholic. And suddenly the whole picture begins to emerge. Catholics are suspect. Catholics are second-class citizens. Catholics are people who need to be socially engineered. And so this takes off after we defeat fascism. Here we are, supposedly fighting a war, and we are the enemy, and no one is telling us. Well, actually, people were telling us. After the war, a man by the name of Paul Blanchard wrote a book called American Freedom and Catholic Power, about how the Catholics, now that the United States had defeated fascism, now the Catholics were the new enemy. And there was a sense that the Catholics are taking over the world in these circles. Adenauer, head of Germany, he's a Catholic. De Gaulle's a Catholic. Franco's a Catholic. The guy in Portugal's a Catholic.
Earlier in 1951, 6 countries had created the European Coal and Steel Community to boost economic revival and help ensure lasting peace by creating a common market for these essential wartime commodities. Vigorously promoted by the French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman, the ECSC Treaty was signed in Paris by France, West Germany, Luxembourg, Belgium, the Netherlands and Italy. A wind of change swept over Europe.
L'Europe ne se fera pas d'un coup, ni dans une construction d'ensemble. Elle se fera par des réalisations concrètes, créant d'abord une solidarité de fait.
And there was a sense that the Catholics are taking over the world. They're taking over the world, and we have to do something. And they were dead serious, and they had the wherewithal to do it, and they did it with, at the same time, they were brilliant the way they did it. At the same time, they were trying to get the Catholics involved in the anti-communist crusade. They're working against them in their own neighborhoods, destroying their own neighborhoods. Paul Blanchard's book, when it came out in the late 1940s, is the Catholics had a congenital weakness for fascism. In fact, both Blanchard and Bertrand Russell, whom he praises in American Freedom and Catholic Power, would claim that Catholicism and fascism were politically indistinguishable. This was of special concern to the intelligence community because, in Wirth's words, The totalitarian nations of Europe have substantial representation of their subjects or former subjects in the United States, a fact worth emphasizing in the light of their extended concept of nationality. Once again, war was creating ethnophobia in the intelligence community, which worried about the descendants of these foreign-born residents who presumably are at least in part subject to the ideologies of their respective mother communities. Close quote. Once again, the intelligence community was trying to disrupt communications among subject peoples whose populations had increased significantly in the intervening 20 years. One instance of this, which I mention in the book, is the Pole Town in Detroit. One of the Palmer raids, during the 1920s, right after World War I, went to the Polish Union organization in Pole Town, and they found all sorts of literature, but no one could read Polish. And so there was no ability to know what these people were saying to each other. And that alone posed a threat to the people who wanted to know what was going on. The numbers, according to Worth, and the numbers that we're dealing with here of foreign ethnics were impressive. This again is a quote from Worth. Of our total foreign white stock of 38,720,593, more than 1/6 is German and nearly 1/8 is Italian. If we note further that the Italians have the highest percentage of any of the major immigrants unable to speak English, 15%, we have further reason to fear their exclusive susceptibility to news and propaganda purveyed by their foreign language press, which in part has been subsidized by agencies of the mother country's government. But the ethnic facts become even more worrisome when one considers the fact that most of these ethnics belong to one religious denomination. The change in ethnic makeup of the country has brought with it, according to Worth, quote, a corresponding shift in the religious affiliation of the American population, making, quote, the nation now a little over 1/3 Roman Catholic. As if that weren't bad enough, many of these people dominate, quote, certain highly skilled occupations in essential defense industries, close quote. In fact, quote again, some of the key skilled jobs are virtually monopolized by certain groups whose national origin makes them suspect. Whose national origin makes them suspect. Now, Worth never gets around to explaining the criteria whereby he established which nations are ipso facto suspect. But the fact that he included Ireland and Poland on the list indicates that it wasn't just countries at war with the United States. In fact, the only thing which the Irish and the Polish, who viewed each other generally as members of mutually alien races at the time, the only thing they had in common other than American citizenship was the fact that they were Catholic. It was a commonality which existed only in the eyes of the people who considered them a threat, certainly not in the minds of the Polish and the Irish themselves. What we have here, I have to say at this point, is a complete violation of any notion of citizenship here. It's clear that there are certain citizens who are not citizens. And it's clear that there are certain citizens who have the right to interfere in their lives surreptitiously with the government, full government support. Since Myrdal's book, The American Dilemma, originated at the instigation of the Carnegie Corporation, and since it ended up in the hands of Louis Wirth and Samuel Stouffer, it was probably a project of the psychological warfare establishment from its inception. Simpson, I'm talking about the book here, The Science of Coercion, makes clear that the arsenal of the psychological warfare establishment included black operations, i.e., quote, the clandestine targeting of the U.S. population in addition to that of foreign countries for psychological operations. What Simpson doesn't specify is which groups got targeted, but that gap can be filled largely by investigating Louis Wirth's wartime activities.